few rules on the program. Please, you're only expected to speak for about a minute when you call into the studio, so as to give space for other people to make their comments as well. We also don't give into any logical fallacies, and any news story that you bring must be from a verifiable source as well. The views to be expressed is not in any way the position of FlowFM 92.7 or the staff therein, but is expressed by our in-house analyst, Nicholas Uwerunonye, and any individual that calls in on the show this morning.
Lots of interesting stories to touch on, and don't forget, we have there's some 30 minutes to discuss some of these trending national headlines. So at least once we're done with the analysis, you're free to call in and give your opinion as to the analysis this morning. Any other story catching your attention, you can bring them on as well to 60 seconds, 1 minute. Let's start from the education sector. There's a whole lot going on in the education sector. Take a listen to this.
All right. Well, the Academic Staff Union of Universities, especially the University of Jos branch, has accused the Minister of Education, Dr. Tunji Marufalausa, of making misleading claims about the federal government's fulfillment of agreements with university workers. The union also warned that it might resume its suspended strike if outstanding issues are not resolved within the next 2 weeks, following its earlier 4-week ultimatum issued on October 22nd, 2025.
Yeah, that is, if I were to look at the past instances where you have this face-off between the federal government and ASU, to a very large extent, it has always been that federal government has always relied on more of propaganda and manipulating the emotion of parents, to get their way, to break the strike and put pressure on the academics. So I will not be surprised if that is what is playing out right now. Of course, we've had the federal government say a lot of things about shelling out some money and things like that. I gave a vivid example recently, when I attended the briefing of convocation briefing at the University of Ilorin, where he talked about certain funding, about 2-point-something billion coming in. I then asked the Vice Chancellor, Professor Wahab, he talked about funding the university system and things like that. To what percentage of that amount to? And his simple answer was, if at the beginning of the year a university requires 35 billion and you get 2 billion, so you can do the arithmetics yourself and know what percentage you are talking about. So you see, the federal government have been committed to tokenism as far as tertiary education is concerned. It's a known fact, and when you call them out, they tend to beg the issues. They tend to whip up needless sentiments that we can't have our kids at home and things like that. So, and ASU has always been very clear. It's either you want a university or you don't. So we can't be, regurgitating the same old thing we've been doing for decades. Creating products that are not fit for purpose, products that cannot fill gaps within the labor market, cannot create jobs that are not entrepreneurial. So that has always been the attitude. That has always been the argument. So until we understand that, the very basis of education, the basis of development is education. There's absolutely nothing you can do without you developing your education and your health sector. And on all these parameters, we have always been failing for decades. So that is just my take on that.
Yeah, well, yesterday we had a news story about how the federal government launched like a transparency dashboard. How is this going to help with the funding, the grants that you receive, and just being transparent and accountable?
You see, for me, I think it's still like begging the issue, really. Because I think it's another way of trying to enforce, that problem of what's this give me if me say that created controversy. You understand? You see, because over time, because the university is poorly funded, lecturers are poorly remunerated. So most times you see that when you have a federal university in a state, an established federal university in a state, and new universities are coming in, what you see is that you see universities from the federal-owned, institution going over to do some, either consulting and things like that. So what they are saying, the problem is that, from all those universities, give me tries to capture what your entire salary package is. You understand? It creates a lot of confusion, and that was what ASU was talking about. That look, the way you are doing this now, You understand? It's going to create a lot of confusion where monies. That is, it will make it look like they are well paid, whereas what they are trying to do is to make end meet. You understand? So for me, I think that dashboard is something like that.
Okay.
Just to see, okay, if we spend this funding, let's show where it's going and things like, without necessarily answering the question of whether they are well paid or whether you are putting the right money in the required amount of money into funding education in the university. For me,
All right. Well, still on the education sector, the Kaduna State government says it has adopted a peace-building approach that offers bandits access to education, healthcare, and livelihood opportunities instead of cash incentives. This was disclosed during a one-day workshop on peace journalism that was organized by the Chapel of Nigeria Union of Journalists, NUJ, in collaboration with Global Peace Foundation Nigeria and the state government. He also said that the initiative that is known as Kaduna Peace Model marks a shift from confrontation to conversation and is aimed at addressing the root causes of insecurity through dialogue and development.
Yeah, that is a very salutary. It's a very salutary move, if indeed it is true.
Okay.
Because if you recall, one of those things that took away militancy from the Niger Delta was something similar to this. They were offered incentives to drop their arms for training, and then of course, cash, allowances at the end of the day, and job offers in the oil industry. In fact, I recall that a lot of Niger Deltans were taken in to do underwater welding, which is a highly lucrative, vocation, So I sincerely believe that. I sincerely hope, because you see, one of the biggest problems with this banditry and insurgency is that we need to understand where it started from. It started from radicalized, extremists. You understand? If you don't de-radicalize them first before you offer them vocation, you might just discover that it's of a minimal effect. And where we have this problem, we have consistently said that they have a veritable vast, recruitment pool. All those out of school children that you've had for decades we are talking about more than how many decades we are talking about now, nearly as old as since Nigeria was independent. So you can imagine, they keep on churning out those ready tools for, radicalism. You understand? So, I was reading one of, that is a Campbell's, that is the former ambassador to Nigeria, Campbell. I was reading his memoir. And he was, it was just like he was speaking of Nigeria of today. And that book had been written, it was written just about 2 years after Obasanjo's tenure. You understand? And we are talking of the same problem. So he was regurgitating what the North was like. You understand? And that is what we are facing right now. So the problem has always been there. So unless you de-radicalize, he was talking about this Almajiri system. You understand? Unless something, deliberate effort by both federal and state government is done to stymie that system, we are going to continue to have this problem. And I'm very sure before the end of this problem, people will call in and say that is the exactly, if I recall Shitu very well, Mr. Shitu, that calls from Zango, he is very consistent about that it's a problem. And we need to look at that very well. We have to attack it like in unison as brothers and sisters, devoid of any kind of sentiment or partisanship.
All right, let's take a look at the region entirely as a whole. 19 states in the north, right? Northwest, northeast, north-central, taken away. But let's take a look at the core north this time. And if you look at the number of... I served in northern Nigeria, and I know what we used to do. We enticed children at the time for afternoon, school. So you will buy things just to entice them to school and bring them and just try to impact them a little bit. Now that the Kaduna State government is taking this part, how about other state governors? Can he extend it to other state governors to see over 1 million or 2 million out of school children we have in northern Nigeria? How do we reduce that if it's spread across all other states?
The problem is the elites. The northern elites are the biggest problem.
Are they aware that that's their problem in northern Nigeria?
The thing is that they speak from both sides of the mouth. The ones who you think are more progressive-minded are actually politicians. You understand? No. So, they only speak as progressives when it suits them. But the moment this same issue is brought up in another dimension, maybe an opposition, is making capital out of it, you see them resort to their natural state of being. You understand? So that has always been, you have always have insincerity among the bulk of the elites. So that is why you always, because you see, for them, like all these boys that I'm talking about, when they leave those malams that trains them, they become gangs that are used when there are religious crises or they need to enforce some sentiments. That's they carol them into attacking people that are perceived as strangers or have blasphemed and things like that. That is what they use them for. So anytime they want to create problem, they have an agenda against federal government, against certain policies. These are the people they rally. You understand? So why would you lose the very weapon with which you can negotiate, you can bring the federal government to its heels? So that has always been the problem.
Then if this is not tackled, then how do we move forward then?
You see, that is where federal government needs to grow balls. Cojones, like the Spanish would say. They need to grow cojones to stop this. That look, it's an existential thing. When something is existential, it means that if we don't crush it, I die.
Yeah.
And so you go all out for it. Mm-hmm. That is either we decide to crush this thing or we don't have a country. So unless you grow that kind of balls, unless you grow that kind of manliness, we're not going anywhere. That's the simple truth,
Okay, well, talking about crushing situations in the education system that is not very palatable, the Senate has approved a bill prescribing up to 14 years imprisonment for lecturers and other educators found guilty of sexually harassing students in tertiary institutions. The bill is titled Sexual Harassment of Students Prevention and Prohibition Bill, and it seeks to protect students from all forms of sexual misconduct and abuse within academic environments, while strengthening legal enforcement and punishment for offenders. I remember the sexual grades.
Kiki Modi, the journalist,
Earlier.
Kiki Modi, yeah.
Yeah, I think that, the problem with Nigeria hasn't been the absence of law. The problem has always been implementation. We have very weak institutions that implement laws. Because ordinarily, even sexual harassment alone is more than enough to deal with things like that. And again, I think even that 14 years is not enough. Apart from that, serving jail terms, you need to put them on a database, circulate it to all public institutions, and make sure that people who have been caught as offenders,
are not brought back into the system.
Are not brought back into the system. So it's a penance they have to pay for the rest of their lives. You understand? Then again, the rigor. Proving sexual harassment is a very difficult thing. A lot of people don't know. It's only when you have a case of rape that you know how difficult it is to prove. You understand? So some of these things, we need to understand that there is a culture of, what we call, patriarchy. The society is too sensitive to what the man wants. You understand? So to the disadvantage of the woman mostly. You understand? There are, and of course, there are other instances. There is always a flip side to the thing. The act of provocation, for instance, it's a very big issue, and a lot of people don't know. Women, without even knowing it, they provoke men. You understand? Time will fail me to explain this. There are, so that kind of a law has to be even-handed. You understand? Yeah. So, especially in the area of grooming, the area of being at the right place at the right time, and the kind of things that you do that are suggestive. So those are some of the things that I think we need to look.
Nicholas, let's take this call then. Hello. Good morning.
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Good morning. This is Jim from Faxim.
Hey, Jim from Fati. We always, feel the excitement in your voice when you get through. It feels like I've been trying this number and finally I get through. Good morning, to you. Welcome. Please go ahead.
In fact, Nicholas, please, I want you to give me an update. We are talking about education. Because I forgot to update of those schools that Jonathan built for the Margaries. Which that time, when he built that schools, some of our orthodoxies were even, in fact, insulting him that it's an insult on them for him to build schools for the Majoris. I don't know Because we are talking of insecurity, and act of school children. What happens to today's schools? In fact, I've forgotten, and they're still operational. Please enlighten me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That policy is dead. And that goes to show what I told you. That goes to support what I told you. That these guys are hypocritical. They are hypocrites. The same people, I know of one senator, that did a one term that calls himself a progressive. He was one of those people that kicked out. He has said nothing about that project that Jonathan did. That is our margarine schools. And that was a fantastic project, that was put in place. If there has been sustainability in that, we won't be talking of the issues we're having.
Now, the sustainability you talk about, is it going to be, funded by the federal government or states, or is it a collaborative one?
It was a federal government
project.
With the hope of bringing in the state government.
Okay.
But as you know, at that time, most of the northern governors who were totally aligned against Jonathan at that time. And this, they can't deny it. There is no denial because it's well documented. As a matter of fact, there was a memo written by Nyako, Admiral Nyako, accusing Jonathan of genocide. It's there in the public domain. So if he's alive, rather, he should go and pick up that memo when Ihejirika was the chief of army staff at that time, and he said the way he was fighting Boko Haram was like a war against them as a retribution, for the North over Biafra. He said it's there in the memo. He stated it clearly. But it's always that we are always short-memoried when things like this happen.
Let's take another call. We lost it. Wow, quite lengthy comments from WhatsApp. Let's start off with Uwerunonye Tunji. It says, commendation to our lawmakers of the bill against sexual harassment. I wish to commend the Senate for the recent bill prescribing a 14-year imprisonment for any lecturer found guilty of sexual harassment. This is indeed a bold and commendable step towards restoring integrity and discipline in our tertiary institutions. However, it is equally important that our universities and other higher institutions be cleansed of all forms of vices, not just sexual harassment. Issues like cultism, extortion, and other financial malpractices also demand urgent attention if we are truly committed to building sound academic environment. Our academic institutions must reflect discipline, moral uprightness, and transparency. If these are the values we expect our graduates to uphold when they eventually join the larger society, let our universities be citadels of learning and character formation, devoid of any form of indiscipline or corruption. Thank you very much. Good morning to you in the studio. Please let us ask our brothers in Upper Nigeria what happened to the schools built by former president for those street boys. Just the same way Jim has asked. Dr. Mrs. Olebara from Owerri, the rate at which this government is borrowing huge foreign loans gives us cause for serious concern. What have we achieved with all the loans borrowed? Because we're still witnessing a lot of failures in economy, security, transparency, and failure to sustain rule of law. How have all these borrowings impacted on the lives of the masses? This government has succeeded in mortgaging the future of our children through excessive borrowings with absolute nothing to show for it. I want to remind the rubber stamp Senate that keeps approving everything from Mr. President and that God is still on the throne watching. His mills grain slowly but surely. We must all reap what we sow. Thank you so very much. Let's take a listen to this, WhatsApp audio from Taiwan.
Yeah, quickly, you see, on the issue of Nigeria and terrorism and the killings that we have had, in the sincere truth, we have to be sincere with ourselves, and not until we start telling ourselves the truth, we cannot get out of this. I am a Muslim, and I know for sure that the teachings of some of these Malams, especially in the north, does not conform with what Islam tells us. Not until they stop this teaching of hate, not until they stop misinterpreting the Quran, we will keep on running in circles. These are the people that are breeding elements that will ferment trouble and attack people at any slight instigation. This is a very serious issue. And it's so just quite unfortunate that some Muslims from the other part of this country are being too quiet. Sincerely, there's nothing in the Quran that stipulates any punishment for blasphemy. No verse, no chapter in the Quran that stipulates punishment for blasphemy. Except that the Quran says, whoever blasphemes, we face his judgment in the hereafter. People are conflicting hadiths that hadiths they got from no reliable sources. They are conflicting it with what the Quran says. And anything, any hadith that comes that is in contradiction with what the Quran says is not credible. The Quran is the holy book. I don't know where people of the North got the punishment for blasphemy that they put in their own Sharia law. See, as a country, we need to be serious. Nigeria, by constitution, is a secular state. We need to stop giving recognition to any religion. That is to start with. We need to be serious. We have a constitution. We have to abide by that constitution. God bless you.
All right, Sean, thank you, Toyi, for your comments this morning.
There is a historical context to what. Tony, I quite get your feeling, but you see, we are getting it wrong somewhere. You see, the North did not just start with that. I think it is a legacy of colonial masters. Lord Lugard specifically forbade the teaching of Western education and missionaries moving in the North. So those paraphernalias, that was what happened. That was where so you see, yes, we can't blame the elite, but we have to look at the historical reasons why they held on trenchantly to that culture. So it was a legacy handed to them by the colonial. So at the end of the day, it will still go back to these same Western people. You understand? You see, why, they allowed for Western education, they allowed for, plurality in the South. It wasn't allowed in the North, because it suits the colonial masters to have that monolithic system that suits indirect rule. They wanted to rule Nigeria on the cheap. They didn't want to make heavy investment in ruling Nigeria like they made elsewhere. So that was why the North remains the way it is. And of course, subsequent leaders that have taken over have seen it as an example. It's just like you have our police, that is so full of issues of human rights. It's colonial police that we are still running here. So those people just replace the colonial masters and we are using the same laws,
All right. Thank you very much. That story catches your attention. Please do leave us a comment via WhatsApp 0807 777 9927 0807 777 9927. Well, our conversation this morning centers around education, insecurity, our number of out-of-school children. These are the people who are drafted into, fomenting troubles across, the country. But again, it leads us to this other story. Before I will launch it, let's take this call.
Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning to you. What is your name and where are you calling from?
My name is Benjamin from Ilorin.
Benjamin, go ahead, please. You have 1 minute.
Okay. Please, first of all, you see the issue of this thing. You see, this is all about religious everything. It's not a Christian that owns Nigeria. It's not Muslim. We are one. You see, these people, they are trying to put what they call, they are trying to make us in a little bit less sad. We think that we are doing, that is our opposite religion that is doing ourselves. One thing we should have in our mind that it's not only the Christians they kill, not only the Muslims. It affects all of us. So now we as Nigeria, we need to pick up. Because originally I saw an interview of someone saying that they are from the US of the TVS news that they showed a video of the man in the saying that they were saying that the people that they sponsor $671 million sponsoring the Boko Haram. So now the same Americans that sponsor these people, they are the same Americans that now wants to come and help us. How are we supposed to do? Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Benjamin. Well, he's talking about the congressman Perry, I think Scott Perry, where he mentioned that USAID funds, terrorist groups across the world, ISIS, Al Qaeda, Boko Haram. And that's what Benjamin is trying to talk about. Yeah. See, the same America that's funding some of these terrorist groups is the same America that wants to step in to offer help.
Okay. Now, you see, it might appear so. But you see, the fact is, an agenda has been set. And before you set an agenda, they will look for elements of truth. Now, are we going to deny that people are not being killed in Nigeria? That is the number one question we need to understand. Then secondly, yes, the first person that said that he's going to dismantle USAID is the same US president. And he even accused his predecessors of using it to topple government. So that one has been settled as far as I'm concerned. You see, the problem we have is that our inability to separate issues and know what we really need. They are setting an agenda. How do we make that agenda work for us as Nigerians? That is where the argument lies. We are in agreement that people are being killed. Christians are being killed, Muslims are being killed. And the killers, they will put one religion in front. When we know that the religion does not prescribe this kind of killing. So how do we deal with it? We deal with the perpetrators and the sponsors of that kind of killing. That is what we do. So if we have a meeting ground, why not let's work together and eradicate this thing once and for all? Then again, this might just be an opportunity of solving this out of school problem thing. That by the time you see what is being done to the sponsors of these people, then it will be so easy to convince them that you guys are next. You know?
Please hold on. Good
Hello,
morning.
good morning. Good morning to you. What's your name and where are you calling from?
My name is Balaji, calling from Ilorin.
Okay.
Bolaji. Please go ahead with your comment. You have 1 minute, please. Yes, go ahead. Go
Hello,
ahead.
Bolaji,
We
please
can
go
hear
ahead.
you. Go ahead.
Okay. Concerning the issue of insecurity in Nigeria, I feel our religious leader, most especially the Islam people, they are not speaking up for they are doing.
Well, I appreciate it. Please, I'm trying to speak up. Okay, 0807 777 9927. Let's see. Nicholas, please just conclude your thoughts on this particular one.
Yeah, the point we are making is just like the young man is saying, we are not being sincere. You understand? And I even hear some arguments about our killing not happening in the South. Yes, it is true. That is why you have a lot of the elites very much against the release of Nnamdi Kanu. And some of us are even saying that IPOB can never be the way. You understand? So what we just need is our brothers from the core north to speak the way the elites down there are speaking, because they understand that IPOB is one way or the other has become an existential threat to some level. You understand? So these are some of the kind of things, the willing and dealing we expect them to do, even if they can't speak openly. There's a tacit way of doing things in such a way that our security is generally ensured.
All right. What we're hearing from the National Orientation, Minister of Information and National Orientation, Haji Mohammed Idris, who stated yesterday that the federal government and Nigeria is willing to work with the United States to eliminate terrorism. What do Nigeria bring to the table?
Nigeria will bring intelligence to the table, manpower, boots on ground, but they need to firm up their system, because the belief among the foreign intelligence communities that it's too porous, that information can't be trusted to them. They can't trust information, the credible intelligence to the Nigerian army. So they need to firm up their operations. That is how I think we can go about this.
And of course, again, with this, if this synergy works or this collaboration works, how about other parts of West Africa?
I think they will line up. If Nigeria,
because I'm talking about some Cameroon, Niger, and Chad.
I can assure you that if Nigeria cleans up its acts, Niger, Chad, they will come back into ECOWAS. That is an assurance I'm giving you. Yes. It's just because the person that is supposed to play the big brother is not being a big brother. That is the problem.
All right. Thank you, Nicholas. Our time is first spent, so we can no longer, take any comment or entertain any other call. Your closing shots, Nicholas.
In a few seconds.
Well, we are all endangered, and our thoughts must be on one. We must be on one page as far as security is concerned.
All righty. Thank you so very much for your time this morning on the headline news analysis and the calls this morning.
The views expressed is not in any way the position of FlowFM 92.7 or the staff therein, but as expressed by our in-house analyst Nicholas Uwerunonye and any individuals that called into the show this morning. I'm Danielle Shitta-Bey.
And I am Adedayo Adeyemi. Thank you for joining us. We're back tomorrow morning.
You're ready to chill? Let's go.
Listen anytime, anywhere. Stream us live, call us, send us a WhatsApp message. We're just a tap away. Flow FM 92.7. My music, my radio.